Welcome to the Executive Suite podcast. I'm Savannah Economopoulos, CEO and founder of Check Creative and co-founder of Icon Talent. This is where growth, business, and mindset all check in. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Executive Suite podcast. So today we're going to start off with our check-ins and checkouts as usual. The first thing that we're going to talk about is our check-in. And I have been hammering out our ClickUp. And that is something that I've put off for so long, and thinking about frameworking and structuring a task management software program is not like anything that I look forward to, but we're getting through it. I also have a meeting with a ClickUp expert next week to audit everything that I've done and kind of give me like a little crash course. So that is a win. That is a huge win. And then my checkout is realizing that we have some gaps in some quality control that needs to be tightened up, making sure that our systems are tight. And that is also why we are working on ClickUp. So just kind of those two kind of go hand in hand. But the main topic of this episode is talking about mental health as a business owner and dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety and depression and imposter syndrome and everything that you go through in your head when you're just kind of questioning yourself and you're in that weird season. I've mentioned it before, but I go through this about at least once a year, right around Q3. And I go to therapy every other week, and that's something that is a non-negotiable for me. And most of the time, sometimes it's about my childhood, sometimes it's about my habits and whatever it is, but a lot of the times it's just a place for me to vent and kind of work through whatever I'm dealing with in the business. And, just having that outlet that has an unbiased opinion and can help me navigate what I'm feeling and how my emotions are. So this past July and August, I got married in May, and we actually got married in Greece, and we spent about 3 weeks there. And we came back home, and we also bought a house. So before we left, we were in the process of buying the house. We were waiting for it to be built. And then we stayed at my parents' house for a little bit and then finally got to move into the house. But if you've ever been to Europe, you know that when you come back, there's a very low feeling, because Europe is just like, it's one of my favorite places. Literally anywhere in Europe, I will be happy to visit. And it's becoming this trend accidentally that we go at least every other year. And so you definitely feel any vacation, you step out of your reality for a little bit, you're able to relax. And when you come back in, reality kind of hits you in the face. So that was something that I was dealing with when I came back from Europe. And then if you add on like post-wedding blues, when you've waited so long to have this wedding, you're celebrating, you're partying, you're surrounded by friends and family. You don't know what day it is or what time it is. It doesn't, it's just, you're in this whole different reality. And so that was definitely a trigger of these emotions and me kind of going into like this little depression phase. And so after that, there was just things that were just back to back that we're dealing with. And it feels like, when it rains, it pours. So, when one thing happens, it just all trickles in and it seems to happen all at once. And it's just like the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you just feel like you're in quicksand, just like getting sucked in by all of these negative things that you're dealing with. And that's personal and business. And when you have both sides of your life coming at you at once, it's a lot to manage and it's a lot to hold. And I've learned that over the past 3 years, I've seen myself in Q3 feeling this way. So this was a conversation that I had with my therapist, and it was like, all right, so this upcoming year in 2026, making sure that in the beginning of the year, I'm not setting these insane goals or these insane expectations for myself to where I'm not burning out halfway through the year. And then the other half of the year, I have nothing left to give. Because if you think about it, you're burning out at Q3, you only have 6 strong months out of the year instead of 12. And not every month is going to be strong. And that's also something like a pill that I had to swallow too. So we're all about swallowing the truth pills, because in the end, that is going to make us a better person, a better wife, a better daughter, a better mother, a better owner, a better leader. And sometimes those things you don't even realize that you're doing or you're feeling that way until you can step back and really reflect on what you've been feeling, how you've been feeling, and why you've been feeling. And so What I did these past 2 months, July and August, is all of August, I pretty much worked from home. And I just needed to take myself out from being so involved in the business emotionally and step back for a second and like really reevaluate what I want for myself and what I want my personal routine to be. There was a lot of adjustments happening for me very quickly. Getting married, we were already living together, but getting married, making that official, doing all of the things that are required to become legal and switching over bank, whatever it is. And then buying a house, getting the house organized, getting moved into that. I just had a lot of personal things going on this past year, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to be present in those experiences and make genuinely good core memories in that and not be so distracted with work as well. But August, I worked from home. I gave myself a lot of grace during this period, and I'm really, really hard on myself. And something that I also did during this time was it was a huge self-reflection period. It was a lot of things that I was realizing that, I did that I wanted to be better at, and basically realizing like, I feel like I've had like this cloak of wisdom, or maybe like I've taken the cloak off and now I'm stepping into this next level of being wiser, becoming wiser, and, replaying some instances that happened in the past and realizing that there was more accountability that I could have taken, but I just didn't see it in that moment. And I actually had a conversation with one of my friends about this, and she brought it up, and I was like, wait, that's so true. And I'm kind of going through, just gaining clarity on a lot of things, and personally and within the business. And in this time, I'm also like, the cons of owning a business and all of the negative things about owning a business is very prominent, and your pros are like in Africa and nowhere to be found. So like all you're thinking about is just like, oh my God, I have to deal with this shit and I have to do this and this is also happening and blah, blah. Like everything's just shit. And that's all that is in your head it's just shit. And, I know that I can't force myself to get out of that headspace. I have to let myself get out of that headspace, and I have to allow myself to feel what I need to feel instead of constantly like pushing it aside and trying to get things done, because it literally just makes me explode. And so when I start like feeling myself getting into these headspaces, taking a step back, and I isolate. I like to be by myself. I like to take myself out of public situations, and I don't network, and I'm not around people, and I pretty much fall off the map. And it's something that I have to learn how to get better at, because I know that it does hinder everything in my life, all of my relationships in my personal life, and hinders my business. If I'm not 100% and here for my team, then that also gives guilt. So like there's just so many like double-edged swords in this season. And really just for me to learn how to navigate this better and experiment with different things on how can I not crash out in Q3. But here's the thing. I had a phone call with one of my good friends. He's a videographer in Birmingham. And I was like, dude, I don't know what is going on. I probably call him. I think I do call him every single time I'm going through this season. And I'm like, I am like thinking about putting my resume together and going on LinkedIn and start applying for jobs. Like my lease is up in January. I could get out. I could close all this, and then I could work for someone, have way less stress, and make more money. And he's like, dude, I think about it too. And he's like, I think every entrepreneur, that's the devil's advocate on the side of like, hey, you could go do this. Like, this is an option for you. But like, that's when really going back to your why and your purpose and why you started this, you have to remind yourself that. And you have to remember that like being a business owner comes with so much freedom and so many pros, even though it doesn't feel like it in that time. And now that I'm out of that rut and that headspace, I'm like, I'm crazy for even thinking that. Like, I am crazy for even thinking that. And you have your purpose on why you want to start your business. And, ours is to help small business owners grow their brand and see a financial ROI through the digital landscape, especially social media, and also helping our community as much as we can. And economically, like if the small businesses grow and we're helping them grow, we're in turn helping the whole economy of our community. And that's just such a huge picture for us. And being that I grew up with a dad who's an entrepreneur and owns multiple restaurants, that's such an important piece of my heart. And then at the same time, you get all of these benefits like your write-offs, your freedom, your flexibility, you're able to do whatever you want. And then once you actually start making an income, the sky's the limit. So things get a little bit easier. Sometimes those things get so blurry, and sometimes there's just so much shit getting thrown at you, and you're not alone. You're not alone. And, like I mentioned, during this time, I have notes in my phone. I have so many notes in my phone, but I wrote down like all of these like realizations that I was having with myself. And like when I'm in those mental health lows, like I feel like I'm a burden to the people around me, and I feel like my just negativity is exuding to everyone around me, and I feel so guilty and I feel so bad that is what I'm giving to people, because I know that I have such a high energy when I'm positive, and I know that I'm just an energy person. Somebody could walk into our office that works here every day, and I know when something's wrong without even them telling me anything. I just know. And that's also how I am. And so my energy is very strong. And when it's negative, I feel horrible for giving that to other people. And there's nothing I can do about it. And I can't force myself to do anything about it. At the end of all of this, I'm going to therapy, I'm journaling, I am listening to self-help podcasts, I'm listening to marketing podcasts. I was really pouring into just like my mental. One of my favorite books is Atomic Habits. I probably reread it every time I'm going through one of these seasons. And The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's another one that will really check you and give you a really good perspective shift. But when I'm going through this, the end all be all is that I am internally criticizing myself so much, and I am neglecting my self-care. So when I started working from home in August, I would wake up whenever I wanted to wake up. I would work, whatever needed to get done that day, I would get it done. And then I would make sure that I was going to the gym. I have like a meal subscription that sends me all the ingredients to my house. I was cooking every day. I was cleaning every day. And I was like going outside and just like sitting in the grass in the sun every day. I was reading. I was journaling. I was really just like, my focus was myself and like taking care of my little brain and my little mind. And it's so true that like your self-care is a number one priority as a business owner. Self-care is important for everyone. It is. But your business cannot become a number one priority in front of your self-care. Your business cannot survive without you. And you not performing optimally, your business will not perform optimally. And I know that we all feel this guilt when we set aside time for ourselves or shut our phones off or turn our email notifications off on the weekend. Like, I get it. I check my emails probably every 30 minutes, if not. And it's like an instinctual habit, and I'm subconsciously doing it. And that's not healthy. And it becomes a very toxic relationship between you and your business. And that also leads me into like realizing that like my identity was also very attached and very meshed to my business. And the success of my business is what made Savannah successful. And you have to separate the two. Obviously, you have goals and things that you want to achieve within your company, and that will validate you. But you have two sides. You have professional and you have personal. And learning how that this professional side requires logistic thinking, and your personal side, of course, requires some logistic thinking, but that can also incorporate some of that emotion. And that was a hard lesson for me. I'm an emotional person. I'm a sensitive person. I love people. I don't like when people are mad at me. I don't like when people are upset. I don't like strong arming people. I don't like arguments. I just don't. And I've never been a controversial person. But if I decided to open a business, that is what the business requires me to be, and setting boundaries and doing what needs to be done in order to protect my company and my team and myself. And it's not always fun. It's not. But at the end of the day, this is the bed that you made for yourself. and you get to deal with all of these things because you also get to reap all of the benefits of doing all of these things and dealing with these things. And something else that you can also incorporate too as an owner is like every time you deal with some shit that really takes it out of you, give yourself a bonus, because you know that if one of your team members were doing something above and beyond and dealing with something that normally isn't in their daily routine or within like their roles and expectations, you're going to bonus them, or at least you should be, or doing something to like give them reassurance and reinforcement on their performance. Like, don't forget that rule also applies for yourself. And then one thing that like, I was listening to Vicky Owens. She's based out of the UK, and she quoted somebody else that she listens to as well. And this really made me feel seen and like made me feel a lot better about this whole season that I'm going through. And she basically says business should be in thirds. So a third of the year, it should be exciting. You should feel like you're on top of the world. Your adrenaline's kicking. Those are my favorite seasons. I live for adrenaline. I think that also comes from like me being an athlete, and like, I don't know, when I was in high school, I remember being put in games all sophomore year. I wasn't the first string pitcher, but I started at first base, and sophomore year, I would go in every game in like the 6th or 7th inning, and the bases were loaded, or there was 2 runners on with like 1 out. And I was always put in very trying and challenging situations, and I always came through. And my dad called me clutch. Like, I had a shirt that said, "Call me clutch." And I was always put in situations where I just had to like do or die. And that's just like, it's what I live for. I think any athlete knows like that adrenaline rush, like you pushing yourself to a max capacity and learning and challenging yourself and learning that you are capable of doing those things when you don't think you can be, you know. Anyway, the first third of your business, you should have a season where you feel like you're unstoppable, untouchable, adrenaline's crazy, you're on your shit, you're on top of the world. A third of the business, you should be chilling. You should be like, all right, things are grooving. I worked my ass off this third of the season. We got our systems in place. Everything's grooving. And then a third of the season, checked out, depressed. So, you know, I'm tracking in those same feelings. I do see myself going through those phases and going through those seasons. I just think mine are a little bit more extreme, and I think that my like seasons of being checked out and depressed are a little bit longer than I'd like for them to be. And maybe I'm giving myself even harder of a time about it. But my goal is this next year that I'm paying attention to Q3. And when I'm coming up on that I'm doing things that are going to prevent me from going so deep in the hole. Not preventing myself from going in the hole, but preventing myself from going too deep into the hole. And look, here's the biggest thing of all is just when you're going through these seasons, it doesn't mean that you need to quit. It means that you just need to rest. And again, a hard pill to swallow, but the longer you keep neglecting yourself and pushing those feelings and thoughts to the side because you got to make a website design, or you got to have this meeting, or you got to do this, it's only going to prolong you feeling that way, and you're going to explode. You're going to explode. You got to give yourself some grace. You got to breathe, and you just have to slow down. And it's your shedding skin season. And I actually looked up, like, you know, when snakes shed skin, is it painful for them? And the research that I found was like, it's not necessarily painful, but it's uncomfortable, and it's stressful. And that is exactly what I feel when I'm going through these low seasons. You're just in your shedding skin season. And when that skin does come off, there's this whole new love for your company and whole new motivation, and all of your new ideas start coming and flowing in when you come out of that season. But you got to allow your brain to rest. You got to allow your nervous system to rest, and you're going to come out on top no matter what. And if you're listening right now and you're feeling that season where you're low and you're depressed and you're questioning why you're doing this, and you're almost having some of that imposter syndrome, like, why am I even am I even good enough to be doing this? Like, do I even know enough to be doing this? Take a break, step back, go walk outside, sit in the sun, read, journal, pour energy into yourself, and take care of you, and allow yourself to really reflect and internalize all of the things that you've been going through and dealing with, and understand the emotions that you're feeling and slow it down. Write it out on a piece of paper. Write out what your tactics are going to be to make sure that, like, when I feel this way, this is what I'm going to do. And tune into you, because I guarantee that you are neglecting yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in. If there's anything that you're dealing with or something that you want to talk about, I would love to open the floor and have those conversations on any platform you can find me. I'm at socially_savvy on Instagram and TikTok primarily. But feel free to DM me. This is a space where I want other entrepreneurs to know that they're not alone in their feelings and all of the challenges and all of the wins and everything that they deal with. They're not alone. And this world's not easy to navigate, and having friends and people that can relate to you is something that has made this experience and my lows just a little bit easier to get through. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.